This is so exciting. Okay. I'm really excited. I love to color. I don't know about you guys. I think it is so relaxing, right? I think all right. I just had to edit some of my camera settings. It's like a little grainy. So, in the spirit of Thanksgiving coming up this month on the 23rd, we're going to be coloring a cornucopia. And this is actually a really great subject for what we're going to be doing because cornucopias are plentiful, not just in crops, but in color variety. Really the only color you won't find in a cornucopia is blue usually. It's a very rare color to find in nature. But this is somewhat what our finished product is going to look like. I didn't finish the actual horn part of the cornucopia, but in terms of the vegetables and the produce, this is going to be what we're going to end up with. And we're only going to use 4 colors. Yes, let me repeat myself. Only 4 colors. We can point out a lot of the colors that have been used here: green, yellow, or red, orange, purple, and different types of green too. But if you look very closely, you see a whole bunch of depth in different places. We have some browns in the stem and in the background here, and at the tips of these carrots. And so the main reason why I'm only using 4 colors is because when it comes to color theory, and creating a cohesive finished piece, the less colors you use, the more cohesive it is. The more colors you use in a piece, the more complicated things get. And it can sort of, at least speaking for myself, it sort of overwhelms me. If you delve into art in even a semi-serious sense, you'll usually have colored pencil sets or color sets of like 24. I have a Prismacolor set of 75 colored pencils that I'm not going to drag out because it's so many. But honestly, as I've gotten older, like the less colored pencils, the better for me. So like I like to have 24 and just mix the colors that I need. Usually when we talk about mixing colors, we usually think of like paint of any kind, but you can do this with colored pencil too. Through the work of layering. So if you've been here since before we started recording the session, you may have noticed that I've been coloring certain areas in yellow very lightly with my yellow Crayola. Because that is going to be our first layer for a lot of these produce here. And I've just been coloring it with a very light hand, holding the pencil far back from the tip, which is a technique I've spoken about in previous classes when it comes to color penciling. And I mean, you can practice it with a regular graphite pencil. If you hold it further away from the tip, you will apply less pressure and thus have a lighter application to the paper. So right now I'm just going around and making sure that all the produce that are going to be yellow, that are going to have yellow undertones, excuse me, are colored in with their yellow undertones. Corn is going to be yellow mostly, so let's just fill that in very, very quickly. You don't need to be too careful with this, especially because yellow is such a light color. It'll sort of blend into the white of the paper. And one interesting thought I had while I was doing this was, well, why not just start off with a yellow paper to sort of skip the step? But not everything on this page has a yellow undertone. These grapes, this tomato, and a lot of the brown backgrounds that we'll get into later do not have a yellow undertone. So it wouldn't really serve us properly to have a full yellow paper like the one that I'm using. And another thing, I'm using a paper underneath the paper that I'm coloring on, just so that I have a smooth application. So colored pencil really takes the shape of whatever texture you have the paper on top of. So if you were to have your paper on top of a rigid texture, even slightly so, that texture would appear on your paper. And, usually, maybe sometimes you might actually want that effect, but when it comes to blending colors, you want the surface to be as smooth as possible, so you get the blend as smooth as possible, A to B to C. So I'm just using one sheet of paper here. It's like cardstock. It's pretty thick, and very smooth. But you could also use a notebook or, another sheet of copy paper if you just so happen to have one lying around. Yeah, because my cutting mat here has many cuts in it and like little boils and stuff that would show up on my page if I were to color directly on top of it. So I want to avoid that as much as possible. The last thing, I don't think we're going to have time to color the full cornucopia because it's just such a large piece of the paper, but I will definitely make sure to show you guys how to make it brown. So the other thing about a cohesive color story is what colors you use specifically. I really, really, really would love to just do a class where I go over the basics of color theory. I think that would be so fun. I love color theory so much. But basically, what you need to know for this class is that yellow and purple are opposite colors on the color wheel. So I have yellow and I have purple. And red and green are opposite colors on the color wheel. So think Lakers, LA Lakers, Christmas, those are the things that I think of when I think of these two color schemes. And the reason why we're using opposite colors is because they give us brown. Mixing in opposite colors together gives us brown. It gives us different types of brown. Usually when I was younger, I was like, you get brown by mixing orange with black. But I found that I get a more interesting brown if I mix orange with blue. It's opposite color. And you can do this by mixing any opposite colors, right? So yeah. So we're using, and not only are these opposite colors, but red and yellow are analogous to each other. No, they're not analogous to each other. They're missing one in the middle. They're missing orange in the middle, and the same thing with purple and green. So purple and green are missing blue in between them. So it's very much like it's a good color combination to use. And the purple sort of gives us a little bit of blue to work with, which makes it really, really interesting. So I've already colored a lot of the yellow parts in yellow. I have 2 sections of the pumpkin here that I didn't do. Let me just like quickly, very quickly, haphazardly almost fill that in. So I have the bell peppers filled in, the pumpkin, of course, this pear, this orange, this lemon, these carrots, these cucumbers, this squash, the corn, these peas. I thought of this as another citrus fruit, but it's probably like a tomato. I'm not sure, and I have no idea what this is. If anyone can figure out what kind of produce this is, please let me know. I left it uncolored. It's just white. It's just a white disc. I don't know. Yeah, so we have a yellow pumpkin. We're gonna leave the yellow to the side for now and color in some red, starting with the grapes. We're going to do purple grapes, but we're starting with red. Because if we just went straight in with purple, it would be a little too blue and it would look a little unnatural comparatively to the rest of our composition. So I'm very quickly, with a very light hand, I'm not holding the pencil very close to the tip. I'm holding it very far out. And I'm just moving my wrist quickly side to side to fill in the grapes. But I want purple grapes. I like purple grapes. I've never actually seen like super red grapes before. They always look purple to me, so we're gonna make them purple. And another thing I should add is that this gets easier if you use more expensive colored pencils, but I'm demonstrating this with Crayola because this is like elementary school standard. So like I said, it'll be easier if you use something like a Prismacolor or a Faber-Castell, but it is not impossible with Crayola. I did this with Crayola. I did this with the same 4 colors that I'm using right now. So, you know, just because something is inexpensive doesn't necessarily mean that it's unusable. And I actually, like, the more I use Crayola, the more I kind of prefer it over Prismacolor, but that's a whole other conversation. Prismacolor is more pigmented, but this tomato is red. This is a tomato and it's red. So we're coloring it in red and we're refocusing our camera because it got super blurry just there. I don't know why. Very quickly, side by side, very lightly, coloring that in. So actually, let's start with this tomato. I think in this composition, based on where the catch lights are placed on the peppers, right there and right there, that the light is coming from the top front of the composition. Which will help inform me on where to place my shadows, which is very important for this. Very, very important for this. So to place my shadows on my tomato, I'm going to take my purple colored pencil and I'm going to go around the perimeter of the tomato, starting here on the left side. And just sort of draw a line there. I think we can zoom in. I think we have the ability to zoom in. How's that, everybody? Yeah, we're gonna zoom in on this tomato. We're gonna add some shadow underneath these leaves here. And so that's generally where I want the shadows to be. Like right here, like a little bit thinner right there, and then a little bit more up here, but it's not gonna go all the way up to the top. And so now we can start layering. I'm going to press a little harder, hold the pencil a little closer. And start adding shape to this shadow. And you may notice that I left a little gap between the shadow and the line. That's because if you do a light study on a spherical object, you will find that there's like a little glow right along the edge of the sphere. but you can go all the way to the edge if you want. Just as long as you keep whatever you do in that sense, just keep it consistent throughout the entire piece. So then you can say it's a stylistic choice and not that you didn't know. Because art is more interesting when you break the rules, isn't it? We're gonna leave the shadow on the side a bit thinner. We're gonna deepen it a bit there. All right, I'm gonna put it down. I'm gonna take yellow and I'm gonna add some yellow here, almost in the middle, but like slightly to the upper right of the tomato in like a circle. And then I'm gonna take my red. We're back to the red, y'all. And we're going to press hard on the red and color in the tomato. When I was about 13 or 14, I found a colored pencil tutorial on YouTube that I think changed my life because the woman in the video explained that all paper has texture, where it's like you can think of it as like microscopic mountains and valleys. And so when you press a colored pencil lightly on a paper, you're only coloring the tips of the mountains on the paper. When you press hard, you cover both the mountains and the valleys of the paper. And so that's essentially what I'm doing here. And ever since then, like I've been really proficient in blending my colored pencils together to sort of make whatever color I want, make whatever effect I want. I really gotta get a portfolio together of my work. It's all over the place though. My pre-Crestwood Library work too, like I didn't start doing, I kind of got hired because of my proficiency in art, so you know, amongst other things, other attributes that I have. But yeah, so I'm going in really hard on the shadows here where I added the purple. Right there, right? And you can sort of see like the gloss of the wax of the paper reflecting on the light of my camera, against the light of my camera. But basically, you want to do this the whole way through. I just find it easier to do it in layers because it's less strain on my joints, my fingers. The only thing is that you have to do it in layers. You can't do it in one go. That's the only thing. But that's what's so relaxing about it, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna finish up this tomato and then we're gonna go on to a section of the pumpkin because I think that's like the most important piece of this composition is the pumpkin. And we don't have an orange colored pencil, so I wonder how we're gonna do that. Just kidding, it's with red. Spoilers. I need to rotate the paper. I need to rotate the paper to better match the curve of my wrist. I don't like filling in things willy-nilly when I color. I like to go in a certain direction, usually following the shape of the object that I'm coloring in. So I'm always rotating my paper or like digitally rotating my canvas as well. Pinching and zooming and whatnot. But like my fingers are already because I'm trying to do it fast. Usually I really recommend you do this slowly. This is really not a class where you should be following along with me like speed wise. I really encourage you to take your time. And just listen to and apply the directions that I'm speaking. And use the visual of me like putting it into practice to really drive home like what I'm talking about. Because my hand hurts right now and I don't want you guys to hurt any of your hands doing this. Please take your time. So I'm gonna go back in with a little bit more yellow. Here in the center. And just sort of widen the reaches of that yellow. And I'm also going to color in these leaves yellow so that we can make them green right now. We're doing it right now. Oh, I guess I should say if you have a big Crayola set, this is red orange actually. This is not even red. This is red orange. This is golden yellow. This is jade green. I really like this green. And this is plum. But they're all Crayola. So the plum and the jade green I really like because they're more muted. But yeah, that is our tomato. She's done. Look at how gorgeous she is, right? Looking just like our other tomato. Boom. I mean, you can see how wrinkly the paper got from me like filling it in. We're gonna move on to the pumpkin though. And for that, I need to sharpen my colored pencil a little bit because I dulled it out. I don't have an electric sharpener. So about that, not like super sharp. It doesn't have to be super sharp because we want to get into the nooks and crannies, sort of the pumpkin. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in the stem red. Or I guess red-orange if we're being precise. Why did I do that? Oh my gosh. That's so weird. I'm going to take my jade green and I'm going to color over it with a little bit more force. And as you can see, it looks brown, doesn't it? And it's a very cool toned brown as well, which is really like the color of pumpkin stems, I think. It's like a cool tone brown. For the cutoff of the stump here, I'm going to use purple instead of red. But same thing, I'm going to fill it in with green. Like that. Look at that. Look at how simple that was. We made brown just like that. With red and green and green and purple. But anyways, orange I think should be self-explanatory in terms of how to mix that. We've already colored in our pumpkin yellow. It might be hard to tell because it's a very light layer, but we're going to do another light layer of red on top. And I'm just going to do this chunk of the pumpkin here in the interest of time. Because what I'm about to show you is applicable to the entire pumpkin. And it will take a long time. So, all right. Where the pumpkin sort of comes in contact with itself and with the grapes here, we're going to add some more red. So underneath the grapes, I'm going to press hard, hold the pencil close. I'm moving my pencil in fast, small circular motions because that gets the best blend as well. Because then you can't tell what direction you're going in because a circle goes in all directions, right? So if you rotate the tip of your pencil in fast circular motions, you can't tell what direction you were coloring in. Which is really how you get like the smoothest blend possible. Even just from like light to dark, like what it looks like right now. It's just light to dark here. So first I sort of outline underneath the grapes and then I blend it out with my fast circular motions. And then I think we're gonna add some definitely here in the bottom corner of the pumpkin. We're going to add some depth. Usually when you start out, I notice people tend to conceptualize shadows in terms of black and white. So shadows are black. And again, like that's cool as a stylistic choice if you're doing a darker piece of artwork. Like sometimes graphic novels will use that style, especially if they have a very limited color palette, they'll rely on black a lot. to define their shadows and things. But when we have colored pencils, we can choose whatever colors we want. And I think avoiding black as a shadow, as a color for our shadow, makes our compositions more colorful and more visually dynamic as a result. So we're done with this red. We've blended out the deepest parts. I think I want to do that a little bit more right here. I'm going to take my yellow and I'm just going to go, I'm going to press hard on the paper. And look at how that just came alive. Now it's an orange pumpkin. And basically you do this to the whole pumpkin. And it's very simple. The pumpkin's going to be darker at the corner, so darker here at the top next to the stem and darker here at the bottom and like around the pepper. And it's very easy because it's already broken up into sections for you. So you can just go section by section, left to right, like I'm doing here, because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you can go right to left. But look at that. Basically, once you finish the whole thing, you'll have a nice, beautiful orange pumpkin all the way through, but we're going to leave it at that for now. And we're going to move on to our, what do we want to see? We want to see the grapes, right? The grapes are right here. They're just calling my name. So we want purple grapes. I want purple grapes. I love purple grapes, seedless. Do you guys like seeds in your grapes? I don't like seeds in my grapes. We've already colored them in with a light layer of red, but we're going to go in with our plum now. These grapes all the way here in the back are going to be completely purple because they are in shadow, like next to the corn and underneath the stem here, the pumpkin stem. They're in shadow, so. And maybe this one too. But the rest of them are not entirely in shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the purple around the perimeter of this grape because it's a nice perfect circle. And then I'm going to, in circular motions, blend it towards the center. Like that. And blend it towards the upper right. So we have a beautiful, beautiful gradient. Nice and easy. And you're just going to repeat this over and over. Let's do a grape that's like obscured. Let's do this one. It's obscured, but it's not like fully behind any other grapes, so it's still going to have a catch light. It's just going to be a bit lower. And we'll just leave it at those few grapes because, again, interest of time. But basically just rinse and repeat. So you could certainly leave it at this, but I like to go in with a second layer of red to sort of deepen the grapes a bit. And just follow the same technique as the purple, like starting dark or very vibrant around the edges and blending it out lighter towards the center of the grape in small circular motions. So you see the difference between this grape and this grape that doesn't have any red in it, or as much red as in it as I should say. Look at that. They're very beautiful. They're very cute. I think let's try we'll do the background here, like sort of the shadow inside the cornucopia. And it's going to be 3 colors. It's going to be red, purple, and green. Starting with red, I'm just going to fill in like all the background areas here. Because we want this to be a dark, like cool toned brown. In the background here. So while I'm doing this, I will say because we won't have time to color in the rest of the produce, I will say, I will reiterate, when you want a brown shadow, you should add the complementary color. If you want a darker color of the shadow, you should add the analogous color. So red and purple are analogous to each other. They're next to each other on the color wheel. That's what we used for the shadow on the tomato. A more vibrant shadow, like the red and the pumpkin, right? Yellow and red are one color apart from each other on the color wheel. And same thing with green and purple. So, like, for example, the cucumbers and the bell peppers, I used purple for the shadows because I wanted it to be more vibrant. And that's really the thing. And also, like, for yellow fruit, like this lemon and the squash, I used green as the shadow, and this pear as well. And with some red in there in the center. If you want a brown shadow, you should use the complementary color. The complementary color of red is green, and the complementary color of yellow is purple. And if you want a more vibrant shadow, you use the analogous color or the color in the same color temperature. So color temperature is warm color, cool color. Our warm colors are our red and yellow, and our cool colors are our green and purple, respectively. And we're going in with our green, and as you can see, it's quite brown now. And it's like a cool brown. Because it's in shadow versus the top of the cornucopia that we're going to get into. It's going to be a warm brown. So in terms of the horn, we're just going to color in this part here. We're going to do the version of brown that is a darker orange. So we're going to do a light layer of the red here. And then in the corners, we're going to use our green. And really like blend that in with the red over and over until we get a color that we're happy with. Just here in these two corners, I think. Probably like very deep purple, like just so subtle. Just for the extra depth. So subtle. So again, like for the cornucopia, we started off with this with a yellow base, covering it with red, going in with green on the corners. We're doing another layer of red on the corners on top of the green that we did, and then we're going to do another layer of green on top of that. So you can really see like how nice and brown that is without actually being brown. Like it's actually, it really is still just like red, yellow, and green. But our brain tricks us into seeing brown. Which is sort of what happens this time of year with like all the trees and stuff. Um, a whole mix of like reds, yellows, and greens. But my brain sort of melts them all together into a brown. I think I actually want to do a light green across the band here. Very sparsely though. Not as concentrated as. And then you see how far back I'm holding the pencil now too. Always pay attention to that when I like blend things in, when I make things darker or lighter. Or I guess when you do that, when you want to make something darker or lighter, pay attention to how you're holding the pencil. All right. Yellow, my love. Because we want that like golden cornucopia, right? Look at that. Again, the yellow just, and I'm applying like full pressure here. Yellow just comes to light. Look at that. Wow. Yeah, so that was a really deep zoom in, I think. I think we could use some more. It appears more green on camera than it does to me in person. But I guess it could stand to be more orange than yellow. But yeah, those are basically the techniques that I wanted to talk to you guys about. If you keep applying them, you will end up with this. Like I said, for the peppers, I used purple as the shadows. This lemon, I used green as the shadows. This orange here, I used red for the shadow. This pear, I used green as a shadow, and then I added a layer of red on top in the middle here. And this squash, I didn't press very hard with the yellow. I did very light because I think squash is like a very light colored fruit. Or I wanted to leave it more light compared to like some of the more vibrant things here. For the corn, like, again, I used red as the shadows for the leaves on the corn, and I used red to make some darker kernels. The peas I colored in yellow and then green on top. And the pods I just colored in green. And for the shadow of the pods, I used purple. And there's some lettuce here. I really don't know what this fruit is. If anyone knows what this fruit could be, or this fruit or veggie could be, I have no idea what to color it. Yeah, this is really fun, really relaxing. I hope it's very clear how to make a brown, how to use complementary colors together, with just 4 colored pencils. We didn't even, I have a set of 24 sitting right next to me, and they're all in there. Did not need any of them. There's multiple browns in here, but I didn't use them. I didn't need to. And my composition is better for it because everything has a specific relation to each other on this piece. Nothing particularly stands out too much compared to something else. I mean, maybe this tomato, but can't not have a bright red tomato. Maybe this will be red too. Or maybe this is also a tomato and I just thought it was an orange. I don't know. But yeah.